On the Track is a monthly web TV show about cryptozoology, natural history, green issues, and whatever else the team feel like making up as they go along. Enjoy!
Coming up this week.
The captain and crew agreed that the foul-smelling corpse should be thrown overboard to avoid contaminating the fish that they had already caught.
Hello everybody, my name's Hennis and welcome to another episode of On the Track. I'm a chicken, but my friend Mr. Simon in Denmark thinks that I'm a Gnostic Archon, and I don't know what that means. But you can't argue with anybody from Denmark because they've got mermaids and they make my favourite biscuits. So maybe I should be a Gnostic Archon, whatever that means.
A chicken as master of the universe. Never!
Tell me what's in today's episode, Mr. John.
Well, Hennis, in this week's episode, we have the first of a two-part show with our old friend Ian Squibbs talking about a mysterious carcass found off the shores of New Zealand, all the way back in the year when 2 sevens clashed.
I really like the old credits.
Hello ladies and gentlemen, my name's John Downs. I'm the director of an organisation called the Centre for Fortean Zoology, which is, as you may or may not know, the largest, longest standing, and we like to think of the best mystery animal research group in the English speaking world. But before I go any further, I'm wearing a t-shirt emblazoned with Spring-Heeled Jack, and I just want to say a big thank you to V. McCrimmon, who gave me this as a birthday present. Now my beard's all stuck all over the place. He gave it to me as a birthday present because it was my birthday yesterday. That's the 23rd of August, which shows 22nd of August yesterday, and it shows how far in advance I try to record these shows. And I am now officially an old age pensioner. I am 66 years old, which in the UK means, I believe, I can get a free bus pass and I can get a old person's rail card. And my beard is it looked really quite nice until I held the t-shirt up. I've got to try and sort myself out so I don't look quite so much like some sort of a tramp or a hobo with a taser up his sleeve, which I really don't want to look like. But thank you, V. Thank you very much indeed for my birthday present. I like it very much indeed and will wear it quite often whilst presenting this absurd web TV show. But back to the show. My name's John Dan, blah blah blah, you've already heard that, CF you've already heard that. Welcome to another episode of On the Track. On the Track is a show that we do every Saturday afternoon for about half an hour, and it is done in conjunction with On the Track Extra, which is a show we do every Wednesday evening for about half that. And on the last Wednesday of the month we do a show called, imaginatively, the last Wednesday of the month show, which is actually going to be on No, you'll have missed it. It was on a few days ago. Trying to put my head into the future without a time travel machine is really complicated. But this month's guest was Richard Freeman, or hopefully was Richard Freeman. I'm going to look a complete idiot if he got hit by a meteorite on the way to the station. And it's presented by me and the lovely Vivian Powell, together with our regular panel of V. McCrinnan, Dave Scott, and Ian Squibbs, who, together with us, we debate, discuss, and generally take the piss out of the latest events in fortean zoology across the world. It's great fun, and it goes out at 8 o'clock on the evening of the last Wednesday of the month on the Simply Spooky Network on YouTube. But if you can't make it, it is reposted here almost immediately. Well, I've told you about the shows, but what's in them? Well, it appears that they are a mixture, a melange, a muddle. I think there's other things beginning with them. Lauren, what begins with them?
Minute, of course.
Thanks, honey, I can work with that. Yes, as darling Miss Lauren so correctly says, we're a minute of a show. Or in fact, we're about 30 minutes of a show. Small, perfectly formed, and ready to fill your life with untold excitement and pleasure. Now, we've worked out all the other bits of the show, but what is it? Well, it's got hard science, weird shit, and surreality. And if you want to know what surreality is, Hennis is just about to show you musically. Ian, how lovely to see you, my dear boy. How are you?
I'm very well, John, and it's been a while, unless you count the last Wednesday of the month show, where you can all catch up with us live at 8 p.m. on the last Wednesday of each month, along with our special guests from the world of cryptozoology, isn't it, John?
Well, this month's special guest, however, I shouldn't say this because I don't know the date that this is going to go out, but the August special guest is Richard Freeman.
That sounds good to me.
I think that's great fun.
It will be. So I'm sure we're all going to tune in for that. So anyway, it's good to be back on CFZ TV, and today we're going to travel back to the carefree days of 1977.
The year when two sevens clash, man.
That's right. So, and what we're going to do is have a look at a case that I'm sure most of the viewers of this program will be familiar with. So hopefully they will find the lecture a useful refresher. And for those new to this field of study, then you should find it an informal but informative introduction to the incident. So, without further ado, let's dissect the peculiar case of the Zuiyō Maru carcass, otherwise known as New Zealand Nessie. Right, okay. So, on April...
I couldn't introduce that better myself.
Yeah, you like that, did you? Okay.
Hang on.
I'll celebrate with a quick drink. Let's see.
I'm celebrating with a cup of coffee.
Oh. Right, okay. So, on the 25th of April 1977, the Japanese fishing vessel Zuiyō Maru was trawling for mackerel in the seas 30 miles to the east of Christchurch, New Zealand, when something unusual became snarled in their nets at a depth of about 300 meters. What happened next was truly astonishing. The huge, rotting carcass of some strange, unknown creature was brought to the surface in their nets. It was drawn towards the ship and hoisted above the decks. The crew were convinced that they had caught some unidentified animal and nicknamed it Nessie. So that's original. So anyway, despite this possible scientific significance of the find, the captain and crew agreed that the foul-smelling corpse should be thrown overboard to avoid contaminating the fish that they had already caught. However, as the slimy carcass was being maneuvered over the ship in preparation for disposal, it slipped from its ropes and slapped down onto the deck with an almighty thud. This allowed 39-year-old Michelito Yano, a graduate of the Yamaguchi Marine High School, to examine the creature more closely. Although he was still unable to identify the animal, Yano felt it was definitely unusual, prompting him to take a set of measurements along with 5 photographs of the beast. The total length of the carcass measured 10 meters. The creature had a 1.5 meter long neck, a large head, 4 reddish-brown fins, a tail of about 2 meters long, and it weighed about 4,000 pounds. It seemed to lack a dorsal fin, and no internal organs remained, as the chest cavity and guts had opened from decay, but other areas of flesh and fat were still present. Yano also removed 42 pieces of fibre from a fin to aid further identification efforts. The creature was then released over the side of the boat, and it sank back into its watery grave. Right, okay then. So he took 5 photos of the creature. So what we'll do, John, is have a look at the photos that Yano obtained of the creature.
Okay, here they go.
Right then, so let's have a look then. Let's have a look at picture number 1. So let's number 1 there. Looks a bit of a mess, but I suppose you can make out the limp body of the creature bent double. And then at the front, I suppose you have a large head attached to a shortish neck and 2 rather large front flippers hanging down. So that's what we got there. What do you make of that, John? It's probably what we have.
I think from all of those photographs that true identity of it is fairly obvious. But I can understand why people didn't identify it the way that we would now.
Exactly, and you have to use your imagination a bit when looking at it. If we move on to picture number 2, similar poise, hosted up a bit higher. More of the body is visible in that one. So we got that there. But looks more like a road accident than a mystery animal.
Picture that I saw on the British Evening News at the time, because I was still at school. I was at boarding school when I saw this, and the 17-year-old me was really excited by it. The 66-year-old me less so.
Well, upon first viewing, yes, obviously it's something mysterious. I can't quite remember when I first saw it. It was probably on Arthur C. Clarke, or maybe they probably covered it in the Unexplained magazine of the day. So that's where I saw a lot of these things for the first time. But yeah, it's pretty impressive upon first viewing, especially for a younger person. But yes, as you look into it, then the truth may become apparent. But we can look at picture number 3, though, that Yano took. We'll move on to that one. That's a rear view of the carcass. So maybe some kind of spinal structure is on display there, perhaps. And also, if you look to the top right, we can also see a side view of the head and neck there. So I think that's that one. And then if we move on to picture number 4, this would have been after the carcass fell onto the deck. So there it is there, and the crew having a closer look at the find. So I suppose if you look at it there, just below the orange ball, perhaps you've got the head, mouth open, and perhaps an eyeball on display. So something like that. And the final picture of the 5 again is the one on the deck, and there's a bit of a hive of activity going on around the creature from the crew there. A lot of excitement that day, no doubt, on board.
I'm surprised if it was an eyeball.
Mm-hmm.
I'm surprised because I've examined all sorts of dead things, ranging from single-cell dead things under a microscope, all up to I've been present at a human autopsy. So
Yep.
I am fairly au fait with dead creatures, and especially in warm climates. And when they've been in the sea, eyeballs bursting is the first thing to happen. So I'd be surprised if it was an eyeball, and if that is actually quite a sizable mystery in itself.
Yeah, well, it's obviously some kind of spherical thing, maybe a bit of bone, perhaps. But as I said, there's
it looks like an eyeball. I know what you're saying. It looks like an eyeball.
It's open to interpretation what we're seeing here. It's a bit like looking at the clouds, isn't it? You can see things in the clouds sometimes. But anyway, okay, so that's what was seen on that fateful day in 1977. But you have to remember also that Makito Yano also took a set of measurements from his inspection of the carcass, and he presented this along with a diagram of what he saw. So let's have a look at that. Go on to the next picture, number 6 there. We can look at that diagram and show the people at home. Mm-hmm. Now that's interesting, isn't it? That's what he interpreted. The general plesiosaur form. Long neck, small head, large body, 4 flippers, tail. So that's what we got there, and that's what Yano presented upon his return. So yeah. Right, okay. So Yano returned from Japan on June the 10th, 1977, and promptly had his photos developed in the fishery darkroom. Company executives were fascinated with the photos, and local scientists said that they had never seen anything like it. Some even speculated that it might be a prehistoric creature such as a plesiosaur. On the 20th of July, 1977, officials from the fish company held a press conference to publicly announce their mysterious discovery. Although scientific analysis of the tissue samples and other data had not yet been completed, company representatives played up the sea monster angle, as it must have been good publicity for them. The Japanese media then picked up the story and ran with it. Newspapers published sensational front-page accounts of the sea monster, followed by many radio and television reports throughout Japan. Although some Japanese scientists remained cautious, others encouraged the plesiosaur idea. The director of animal research at the Tokyo National Science Museum stated, "It is not a fish, whale, or any other mammal. It is a reptile. The sketch looks very much like a plesiosaur. This is a precious and important discovery for human beings. It seems to show these animals are not extinct after all." Tokyo Shamaka of the Yokohama National University also supported the sea monster theory, stating, it has to be a plesiosaurus. These creatures must still roam the seas off New Zealand, feeding on fish. So, a positive start there. On July the 25th, 1977, the Taiyo Fish Company issued a preliminary report on the biochemical tests carried out on the tissue samples that Yano had obtained. The report stated that the fiber samples from the carcass were similar in nature to the fin rays of a group of living animals. The living animals referred to were actually sharks, but the report failed to clearly state this, leading to further confusion by the Japanese media and the continued spread of monster mania. So, there we go. In fact, John, the report probably said the samples were animate. Yeah?
Yes, very probably. And you've got to remember also that 1977 was a very monstrous year. Because there was Doc Shields, Frank Searle, all sorts of people doing their own.
There were, and we can.
Things.
There are not only that, which we can also look at shortly. But yeah, but anyway, they probably said it was animate. I hate that word. That's the worst word. Yeah, I hate it. They should ban it.
I'm just going to make a note.
Yeah,
my diary
never mentioned
to use the word animate as many times as I can when you and I are on the same panel on the last Wednesday show.
Well, I'll go for it. Let's see. Toy manufacturers began gearing up to make wind-up models of the beast, while the company that made the camera that Yano used to photograph the carcass developed a whole advertising campaign around the sea monster photos. So yeah.
Good God, I didn't know any of this.
Yeah, well, it's marketing, isn't it? Fishing vessels from Japan, Russia, and Korea headed to New Zealand in the hope of re-snagging the carcass. And in November 1977, the Japanese government issued a postage stamp depicting the sea serpent, and we can actually have a look at the stamp there in picture number 7. We'll have a look at that. There we go.
And that seems like a suitably dramatic place to leave this week's episode. We will, of course, be back with Ian next week for the second half of this show, because there is more, much more to come in Ian's exhaustive investigation. Now, for those of you who are watching this live, you may notice that my place has been taken by V. McCrinnan in the live chat. He's in charge of the live chat this week because I'm off with Richard at the Strange Days Festival in Hampshire, where I'm going to be talking about Owlman, and Richard, I don't know what he's going to be talking about. It's going to be something very jolly. And then I'm going to be doing my best, even though I'm in a wheelchair, to groove along to the music of Henge, who are one of my favourite contemporary rock and roll bands.
If you want to support us and help us make more content like these, please press like, subscribe, follow our Facebook page and check out our Patreon.
And as the ghost of Joe Strummer, who's an ever more regular visitor to my little studio, says, don't forget to ring the notification bell, otherwise you'll miss the new episodes. And that would be an awful pity, wouldn't it?
If you've been affected by any of the topics in today's episode, you can just bugger off, because we don't give a monkeys. Bloody well get a grip. Sort your own bloody problems out rather than ringing up somewhere.
That was a public information film.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, is about it for this episode. Like I said just now, I do apologise that I'm not here for the live chat, but This is the first time I've been to any sort of rock festival in well over 30 years, and I'm determined that I'm going to enjoy it. And as I said, I will be back next week, unless, of course, Henge have taken me on some sort of interstellar trip to a pyramid somewhere on the other side of the cosmos. Or possibly not. I'm going to be back next week with the second part of our conversation with Ian Scribbs, and I would like to thank him very much for all his hard work as well as for appearing on the show, because he does a lot of background research for each of the presentations he does, and I am really impressed with the amount of work he does. I haven't seen a fraction of the pictures that he has come up with for this week's episode, and the same is going to be the case next week. So thank you, Ian. Thank you very much indeed. Now, I'd also like to thank the people but for whom the show wouldn't come out, such as V. McCrennan and Richard Freeman, and my deputy director and carer, an old friend, Graham Inglis, who, as I am recording this, is upstairs watching the first Leeds United football game of the season. I am down here recording. I'm going to be back on Wednesday. What am I talking about on Wednesday? I've got no idea whatsoever, but I will get there by the time that I get there. There's all sorts of things that I want to be doing an On the Track Extra about, and I have got Richard Freeman coming up to stay with me on Tuesday in order to record the last Wednesday of the month show and various bits and bobs which will appear on this channel in due course. Now, I also want to say a big thank you to everybody else involved. My producer, Louis, who is now being such a senior and important tech person in America, I'm almost tempted, but not quite, to be glad to hear, to stop taking the piss out of the poor boy. I want to say a big, big thank you to Gwyn Palmer, my assistant director, who is my chosen heir to take over when I finally hang this hat, because I'm not really going to wear any other hat in public, hang this hat up and retire. So when I do, she'll be taking over the whole damn circus. I'm not going just yet. I've got all sorts of things up my sleeve first that I want to do. An awful lot of them will be appearing on this channel. But anyway, I'll be back on Wednesday and I'll be back on Saturday. And are you going to be there, Mr. McCrennan? Because I'm talking to you, Mr. McCrennan. Because I have got Lilith here. You can't really see her, but she's sitting on the fish tank opposite me. Let's see if you can see her. Yes, Lilith and I want to know, Mr. McCrennan, whether you're going to be watching the show. Because if you are going to be watching the show at the same time as I'm doing the live chat and the emails and the mail outs and the notifications and all the other gubbins that Lilith and I do on a Saturday afternoon before we usually snuggle up and have a cuddle, then Lilith and I will most certainly be trying to get over Lilith. There, seeing you.